That was Brickhouse by the Commodores, played by Ron LaPrade, and it's a really great bass line to learn. Now I'm just going to show you the main riff here, but if you listen to the original, which I urge you to do, you'll notice that there are all kinds of little different fills and embellishments that Ron did. He originally started jamming this in the studio, actually, and other guys heard it, and that was how the tune was composed, just around the bass line. So it's a good idea to learn loads of riffs like this from that kind of 70s period, or any period for that matter. And this is a great example of a song that's really bass focused, so it's great to play. It also might give you a few ideas of how to write some kind of songs yourself. But we are in the key of A, and I'll show you sort of A minor here, and I'm going to show you some of the fills that you can do a bit later. But for now, we'll just start the bass line itself. So that's the first bit. So it's A, C, D. There's a number of ways of playing this. So you could play the A on the 5th fret of the E string, for example, which is what I normally do, but sometimes I'll play it on the open string. It doesn't really matter. I think if you play fretted notes, fretted open strings, or rather, instead of playing an open string like an A there, you might play it on the 5th fret of the E string. You get a little bit more control over muting and the note length if you do that. So I'll leave that up to you, and I might interchange myself. So I'm going A, C, D, then G, G sharp, A on the E string, 3, 4, 5. And the attack with the plucking hand fingers is quite aggressive, but at the same time, if you listen really closely, he's quite sort of behind the beat. He's not really pushing it too much. So to try not to anticipate the notes, you've got to kind of lay back a bit more. Now that drum beat I was practicing to is at 108 beats per minute, which is kind of roughly what the tempo is of the track. And I'll put a link below where you can just download about 5 minutes of that drum beat just to play along. Try playing bang in time if you can, or just a bit behind. So we start off with, then we've got that. Now it sounds to me like a pop, like you would do a slap, or just a more aggressive attack with the plucking hand, or even just a kind of compromise, a half and half. Okay, but that bit there just pops out a bit, and it's the G to the A, the fret 5 to 7 of the D string. And then you're kind of jumping to the 3rd fret of the A string, which is the C. So a little bit of a jump, that. And again, you can experiment with doing that on the open G to the 2nd fret of the A string. That way you get to that C a little easier. So, I mean, there are always a number of different ways of playing something on a bass, so you should experiment. So you've got the hammer-on from 5 to 7, G to A on the D string, and then you've got, which is like a pull-off from fret 5 to 7, the D to the E on the A string, back to that C. And then that sort of quite aggressive sound again from the 5th fret to the 7th fret of the D string. So the whole thing. That's kind of the main bass line, really. And as for fills, I'll make this quite a short video, but as for fills, it's kind of in the key of sort of A Dorian. That's the sound. Now, A Dorian is a mode. It's the second mode of a major scale. So this comes from the G major scale. It's almost exactly the same as A natural minor, which is another scale you should know, which is, I'll show you that one first. So if we go from the 5th fret of E string, finger-wise, if you put your first finger at the 5th fret and line the other ones up, 1, 2, 3, 4, one finger per fret, it's 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3. That's the natural minor scale. Now, if you raise just the 6th note of that scale, 1 fret, you get a Dorian mode. And that mode is used a lot in funk music. There's something about that major 6th interval against that minor 3rd that just gives you that really funky sound. You'll hear it loads. If you listen to Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that entire album is kind of minor pentatonic with quite a lot of Dorian stuff. So that's worth checking out as well. And this is a mode that you really need to learn. And if you couple that mode with just the A minor pentatonic scale, a little bit of blues scale in there, it's the same thing with that flat 5 in there, you've got all the scales you'll ever need for fills, really. So I would get that drum beat and just play the solid groove itself over and over and over again, trying to get it in time, feeling really, really good, and just listen to the original to try and get the feel as close as you can. And then add in fills. But the thing is with fills, you have to return to the bass line on beat 1, bang in time, and that is quite a hard thing to do. You may stumble, but that's a bit of a criminal offence. You can't do that. You've got to hit that A again on beat 1. So like, at that point there, the second time round, you can do a little fill. Now there, I was just using the minor pentatonic scale. So that shape, the first shape you get at the 5th fret. You know, fingers again, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. And using your hammer-ons, your pull-offs, your slides, your bends and vibrato and all that kind of stuff. With this kind of funky music, it's good to make it sound quite aggressive. That's kind of what we're aiming for here. So what did I do there? I'm just making this up, really, but they're just a slide from frets 5 to 7 on the A string, and then pluck 5 to 7 on the D string. I'm just going up the scale here. And there, just the C on the 5th fret of the G string and sliding down. Did a little ghost note, and then 5 to 7 on the D. Now, the Dorian mode, I'll just quickly show you a good shape where you can get some nice fills from. So if you now put your second finger on the 5th fret of the E string, and first finger is on the 4th fret, we're now technically in 4th position, because that's determined by where the first finger lines up. So it's on the 4th fret, we're in 4th position. So I'll just say those finger numbers. You go 2, and then 4 on the 5th and the 7th frets of the E string, A and the B. It's basically going up the alphabet. That's what a scale is. A, B, C, D, E, and then you've got that F sharp, that raised major 6th. So it's the second finger, 4th finger. Then I'm reaching out of 4th position to the 3rd fret, the C on the A string, going C, D, E, A, B, C, D, E. And then you've got that really cool sounding F sharp, and then a G, and then an A. Frets 4, 5, 7 on the D string. If I carry on just to get a more extended position, the same positioning, the fret 4, 5, and 7 of the G string, you get. You can have that G in 3rd fret E string, and you got loads. You know, loads of fills just in that position there. Exactly the same scale, starting on the 12th fret of the A string, you've got just up an octave. And that's just walking down the scale from the 14th fret of the G string. And that's a really important point. I know some of the notes down here, some of the notes up here, and then connected between. You need to know any shape you're doing anywhere on the bass. You need to know a few patterns. But don't worry about that, because when you learn scales, you'll realize that the patterns between the notes are always the same. So in the Dorian mode, it's always this pattern. And so if you're playing it and you're at the 14th fret, it'll always be that pattern. I'm kind of, my ear is connected to what I'm playing on the bass, but it's tones and semitone. A tone is distance of 2 frets, and a semitone is distance of 1. So that's tone, semitone, tone, another tone, another tone, semitone, and a tone. Obviously that's too much for if you're playing this live. I'm just demonstrating that these notes kind of work. But if you could get that drum beat, put it in your DAW and just play it, loop it around. I mean, it's 5 minutes anyway, but you can loop it even longer than that and just get that. Just try and play that on its own. Listen to the original and try and figure out any of the little intricacies that Ron did on the original. Try and work that out. But then make it your own by adding in some fills. Now, we are practicing fills here, or if you are, doing what I was doing, you would be practicing fills. But remember that in a live situation, your job is to hold down the groove and to play the basic bass line as is, especially if you're playing a cover or something like that, and people are expecting to hear that. Don't overplay, don't overfill. But with playing with that drum beat, it is a good sort of practice technique to play the bass line, add in some fills, and land. Got to land back on that A right in time. So you'll get used to playing fills and becoming automatic with your positioning and your technique. Because if you're not, then that's where you're going to stumble, because you'll be kind of caught up in that fill, and then, oh no, I've got to play that A again, and you'll miss it. So use that drum beat as a little bit of a practice to get from the fills back to beat 1 there. So yeah, that was Brickhouse. I'll do a few more of these in the future, and if you've got any requests for any kind of cool bass lines to play, then let me know, and I'll do that for a future video. Cheers.